Somewhere on your phone, right now, there's a setting that could turn $50 a week into $1 million. Not eventually, in theory, literally, with the actual math run properly. Here's the number almost every $50 a week to $1 million video leaves off screen. How many years it actually takes. And once you see it, you'll understand exactly why most people who try this quit, long before it works. By the end of this video, you'll have the real math, not the version built to look good on a thumbnail. Prince is 21, sitting on his bed with his first full paycheck. He sets up one recurring transfer, $50, every Friday, into a low-cost index fund, and closes the app. It takes about 90 seconds. He won't think about it again for weeks. That's the entire habit this video is about. Everything from here is just what $50 a week actually does to that account over the next 4 decades. The real trajectory, not the highlight reel. 10 years in, Prince checks his balance. He's contributed just over $26,000. The account shows roughly $39,000, more than he'd worked out in his head, enough that he does the mental math twice before trusting it. It still doesn't feel like a strategy. It feels barely different from a diligent savings account. This is the part almost nobody shows on screen, and it's also the part that's genuinely counterintuitive. What Prince doesn't realize, checking his balance that day, is that the tipping point already happened, roughly a year earlier, around year 9, without any notification, without any milestone marking it. That's the point where what the account earned in interest for the year finally outweighed what Prince put in himself. Nothing on the screen announced it. It just happened, quietly, before he'd even thought to check. At 35, 14 years in, Prince is tempted to stop. A friend, mid-renovation on his kitchen, asks why he's still throwing $50 a week at some fund that hasn't done anything in over a decade. Prince doesn't have a sharp answer on the spot. He just knows the number on his phone hasn't visibly moved in months. That night, he opens the app. With his thumb hovering over cancel transfer, he doesn't tap it, mostly out of inertia rather than conviction. It's the closest this habit ever comes to actually stopping. Here's the part that makes this genuinely strange. Even though the account crossed that tipping point around year 9, the graph doesn't look any different for a long stretch afterward. The dollar amount stays small enough that the acceleration is invisible to the eye. The dramatic-looking curve most people picture when they hear compound interest doesn't actually show up on screen until much later. Past the 2/3 mark of the full 44-year timeline, two things are true at the same time. The math tips early, and the picture stays flat for years after that. That gap between the two is exactly why most people quit right before it starts to show. Here's where almost every $50 a week to $1 million video cuts a corner. They pick a rate of return, run it forward, and stop the clock exactly when the number looks good, without ever putting that assumed rate on screen. That one number is the entire video. Change it, and the timeline shifts by decades. At a conservative 6% average annual return, $50 a week takes about 54 years to become $1 million. At 7%, about 49 years. At 8%, a reasonably realistic long-run average for a diversified stock portfolio, about 44 years. At 10%, closer to 38. Even at an aggressive 12%, a rate few diversified portfolios sustain for decades, it's still roughly 33 to 34 years. And at 15%, a number no realistic long-term portfolio holds for anywhere near that long. It's still closer to 29 years than 10. Notice what doesn't change, no matter which column you pick. There is no realistic version of this where $50 a week becomes $1 million in 10 years, or 15, or even 20. Every honest version of this math takes multiple decades. That's not a flaw in the strategy. That's what the habit actually means. Not a trick, a length of time. For Prince, starting at 21, in a genuinely diversified, low-fee index fund, earning something close to the market's long-run historical average, the honest number lands right around 44 years, putting the $1 million mark somewhere close to age 65, not as a promise, as what the real math actually produces. There's a second number almost none of these videos mention, and it matters just as much as the rate of return. What $1 million is actually worth by the time you get there. And here's the honest thing to say up front. The title of this video says $1 million. That's the number that gets clicked, and it's also the real number that lands in Prince's account at 65. But here's what it's actually worth in today's terms. Prices rise every year. usually somewhere around 2.5% to 3%, averaged over long stretches. That means the $1 million sitting in Prince's account at 65 doesn't carry the purchasing power of $1 million today. Run that same 44-year stretch through a realistic average inflation rate, and that account is worth somewhere between $270,000 and $335,000 in today's money. That's not a reason to feel like the habit failed. It's still a genuinely large, life-changing amount of money, built from $50 a week and time. But it's a different promise than the one on the thumbnail, and the gap between those two numbers is exactly the gap between a video optimized for clicks and one built to actually help you plan. Here's where the story actually splits in two. Not because of anything Prince does differently, but because of one line item most people never bother comparing between one fund and another. What the fund itself charges to hold his money. Picture two versions of Prince's exact same habit. Same $50 a week, same 44 years, same underlying market. In one version, he's in a fund charging a modest 0.2% a year, netting close to that 8% figure. In the other, he's in a fund that looks almost identical on the surface, but charges 1.2%, a 1 percentage point gap that barely shows up on any single monthly statement. Run that 1-point gap across 44 years, and the account that should have crossed $1 million instead lands somewhere in the $720,000 to $765,000 range. A difference of roughly $250,000, created entirely by a fee most people never check, on a fund most people never compare against anything else. Prince is 65. He never increased that $50 a week by much, never tried to time a downturn, never chased a hot fund. The habit that started as one 90-second setup on a Friday afternoon is now the single largest asset he owns, built almost entirely from decades he barely noticed passing, and one decision he made once and then left alone. He didn't get rich quickly. He got rich slowly, in a way that looked like nothing was happening for most of it. So here's the honest version of $50 a week to $1 million. It works, but it comes with 3 conditions, almost never mentioned in the videos promising it. It takes closer to 4 decades than 1. The number at the end is worth less than it looks, once inflation is priced in, and a fee difference of just 1% can silently erase a quarter of the outcome, without you ever noticing it happen. None of that makes the habit less worth starting. If anything, it makes it more worth starting today, rather than next year. Because the single biggest input in every version of this math isn't the amount, or even the rate of return. It's time. 44 years only works if you start closer to 21 than 31. If you take one thing from this video, take this. Check what your own account is actually charging, and check what rate of return it's actually assuming. Because those two silent numbers, more than anything else, decide which version of this story you end up living. If this helped make the real math easier to see, subscribe to Aussie Wealth with Prince. There's more of this kind of number checking coming. And tell me in the comments, what rate of return did the last Get Rich Slowly video you watched actually assume? You might be surprised whether it ever said.